Connection is one of the most important elements required for any type of relationship, transaction, or business exchange. One of the easiest ways to establish this positive connection quickly is to use people's names.
You're listening to Prospecting on Purpose, where we discuss all things prospecting, sales, business, and mindset. I'm your host, Sara Murray, a sales champion who's here to show you that you can be a shark in business and still lead with intentionality and authenticity. Tune in each week as we dive into methods to connect with clients, communicate with confidence, and close the deal.
Hello, and welcome to Prospecting on Purpose. Today I want to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. When I think of my own personal ability to connect with people, I contribute one of the key ingredients, and quite honestly, this is probably the secret sauce, which is my ability to remember and use people's names. Connection is one of the most important elements required for any type of relationship, transaction, or business exchange. The stronger and more positive the connection is, the greater the outcome will be, and it's usually more seamless to achieve. One of the easiest ways to establish this positive connection quickly is to use people's names. For this episode, we're going to get into the impact of a person's name when it comes to influencing others, and at its core, being an effective salesperson or a prominent leader requires the ability to influence. We'll discuss the use from a luxury capacity, and then we'll wrap it up with some tips on remembering people's names and what to do when we are bad at remembering names. Good old Dale Carnegie, the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, is quoted saying, "Remember that a person's name is, to that person, the sweetest and most important sound in any language." Now, why is it the sweetest and most important sound? The use of a person's name connects us to our identity and our culture. It's a crucial piece to our overall existential being. Literally, since birth, we have been programmed to respond to the sound of our name. Here's a simple example. We've all experienced this. We're out for a walk, or we're walking through a crowd at a conference, or we're out at Disneyland, and we hear someone say our name, or even a word that sounds like our name, and we whip our head around in response. This is kind of terrible, but it reminds me of a dog responding to a whistle. So to put this very directly, if we are in a role, like a sales role, and we're trying to influence others, and we have a tool that works as well as a dog whistle, why wouldn't we use it? All right, dog whistle analogy aside, using people's names adds instant connection and usually gives this energy of immediate friendliness too. It starts off the conversation from a positive and enthusiastic place that creates the tone to establish that positive connection. And finally, using our names adds this baseline element of our humanity because we are recognizing the humanness in the other person. It should be pretty straightforward to see the impact of our ability to connect and influence others if we're speaking to their identity and their culture while simultaneously establishing ourselves as a friendly individual who values the other person's humanity. Additionally, especially in roles and companies where we're differentiating ourselves from our competitors to establish these elevated relationships and win business, there is a huge element of luxury when it comes to using clients' and colleagues' names. My last guest on the show was Amanda Frazier, president of ratings for Forbes Travel Guide. She and her team set the standards and guidelines for what qualifies a rated luxury experience. One of the factors that contributes to a 5-star rating is the use of the guest's name. If we've been fortunate to stay at a luxury hotel, the staff will welcome us by name. "Welcome, Miss Murray. We're so happy to have you." It makes us feel seen, special, valued, and connected to that person and that establishment. Especially if we're spending money to stay there, we would hope that this business is going to make us feel special, seen, and valued. My first job was at a country club, and at the beginning of each season, we were given a list of all of the country club members' names. And I would memorize the list. I would always use their names. I would learn their kids' names. I would remember things about them. And I would always have great bonuses and great tips at the end of the season because I took the time to care about their name. Now, hotels, fine dining, spas, country clubs, these are all expected to have this opulence around them. But really, any industry and any company has the opportunity to create quick luxury experiences by incorporating the use of people's names. An easy example I've started to see more in cafes or order at the counter establishments. Nowadays, when you buy a coffee or a sandwich, there's the iPad with the striped credit card feature. When you swipe it, our information's attached to our card, and the cafe can also see our name. They don't ask for it. And the first couple of times it's happened, it tripped me up a little bit because they didn't ask. But now I'm waiting for my coffee, and when they say Sara versus iced latte, it adds this little touch of luxury. It makes me feel special because I didn't have to tell them. They were smart enough to just grab it from the iPad, and it adds so much more convenience because I can respond to it right away, grab the correct coffee, and go about my day. It removes the guesswork and that awkward little dance you do with other people waiting, like, oh, is this coffee yours or mine? You're bending over the counter to ask the barista, hey, did you say iced latte? This is where we start to see a differentiated experience. It cost them nothing, but potentially created a loyal customer and delivered a seamless experience. These examples are service-based and transactional, so here's an example from a leadership perspective. I was new to a company and I was attending my first large sales meeting, and a vice president from our headquarters approached me and a colleague. We had never met him before, we didn't work under his team or his department, but he came up to us, he knew both of our names, shook our hands, and introduced himself. And I was shocked that he knew who we were because we were new. And I asked him quite directly, because I do that, how did you know our names? And he told me that he looks at the team pictures before big meetings because he wants to meet the new colleagues and make them feel welcome. I thought it was brilliant. I felt so valued. I was so impressed. It made me want to be on that person's team. I think he does it with large client events too. He studies ahead of time, making sure that he knows his clients. He's greeting them by name. He's making his team and his customers feel valued, and he makes that intentional connection with the use of their name. Now, what happens when we are quote unquote bad with names? I know I've shared this example before on a podcast episode discussing fixed versus growth mindset. That's episode 7, 4 pillars for a growth mindset. If you haven't listened to it, go back and take a listen because this example is used in a different mindset capacity, but I use this example for a couple of reasons. First, I'm just going to be very blunt that if we are in any type of sales role, marketing, public relations, communications, leadership, any type of role where we're interacting with and influencing people who purchase our product or service, and if we meet someone for the first time or we're meeting them a second time or third time and we are telling them that we are bad at names, we are failing at a crucial part of doing our jobs efficiently. It may be totally true and we suck at remembering names, but vocalizing that makes the other person feel that they're not worth our effort or our energy to care about their name. And as we know, our names are attached to our identity and our culture. So we are unintentionally communicating to them that we don't care about who they are as a person. And I know that's not true. Nobody's meaning to do this, but that's how it's coming across. So what can we do to work on this? First, we must stop saying we're bad at names. We may believe it's true. It may actually be true. But it's important we don't say it to the other person. And honestly, if we keep saying it, we are removing ourselves from any responsibility to improve upon it. Here are some different scripts we can use where we're still asking for a person's name, but it's in a much friendlier approach. We run into someone we met before, we can literally say, I know we've met before, but please remind me your name one more time. They respond, my name is Michelle. Ah, yes, of course. Hi, Michelle. It's so lovely to see you again. And then you go into your conversation. Or you can start the conversation by making a connection to the last time you met them. So you're reassuring that person that you didn't forget them, just their name. I remember our conversation at XYZ networking event. We were talking about Ted Lasso. I'm so sorry, but I'm blanking on your name. Would you remind me? Another thing that works is to reintroduce yourself to give them the out if they forgot your name. I am sorry, I have forgotten your name. Mine is Sara. What is yours? Hopefully those reframes and restructuring are helpful tools you can use instead of just telling the person you're terrible at names. How can we improve on remembering names when we first meet someone? One way we can work on it is be really present when we are meeting new people. We may hear their name, but we may not be listening because we're thinking about our own introduction, or we're distracted by somebody walking by, or we just moved directly from hearing the name to asking what they do. Be present and focus your conversation outward instead of internally. Try to use their name immediately after meeting them. Great to meet you, Josh, or it's lovely to meet you, Josh, to show that you've listened to their name, but it also helps you lodge it in your brain. What's nice about this is if you don't hear it correctly, this gives the opportunity to immediately correct yourself It is way less awkward to do it upon the first meeting as opposed to the next encounter, or remembering their name wrong and saying the wrong name. If someone has a name that's difficult to pronounce, we have permission to ask them how to pronounce it. I usually try to pronounce it first, and I follow up with, "Am I pronouncing your name correctly?" Another tip from a study reported in the Washington Post that was deemed the most effective: when you're in a conversation with someone you just met, periodically think to yourself, "What is his name? Josh. What is his name? Josh." Do it 10 seconds after the meeting, then 30 seconds, then 2 minutes, and then 5 minutes. And then at the end of the exchange, try to use their name again if there's any follow-up tasks. "Well, Josh, it was so great to meet you. I'm looking forward to presenting to your team. I'll send you an email to follow up." The final thing I'll leave us with is that one way we can improve this skill of weaving in names into conversations more frequently and more organically would be to try it out in all other areas of our lives, not just work environments. I know what I am about to break down may make some of the shyer people cringe, so we're just going to call this practicing in low-stakes environments, so that when it's in a high-stake environment, we're more comfortable with the use of names because we've been practicing. I use people's names literally wherever I go, and you wouldn't believe the type of service, discounts, and fun conversations I've had and people that I've met. Here's a couple of examples of using people's names when we're out and about. For shorter, quick interactions, like interacting with the valet person, or the coffee barista, or the retail employee ringing up our purchase, this is something as easy as seeing their name tag and saying, "Thank you, Kelly." Just try it. It's easy. And then in a situation where we have a longer exchange, such as a server at a restaurant, or if we're sitting at a bar and we're talking to the bartender, if you don't do this, I want to just strongly encourage you to try it. It's not awkward, I promise. I'm going to use a bartender example. We sit down at a bar. I literally just ask the bartender, "What is your name?" In this example, our bartender responds with, "Kelly," and I repeat the name back to her, and then I introduce myself, and if I'm with somebody, I'll introduce them as well. "Kelly, I'm Sara. This is Michelle." And then we just move on. Kelly goes back to doing what she's doing. We're looking at a menu. We move on with the exchange. But what happens is that the rest of the time, everything becomes more elevated. If we need something, now we know Kelly's name, so we can get her attention quickly. Kelly feels more connected to us. She knows that we're not jerks. She gives us excellent service. The whole exchange is vibrating on a higher frequency with something this easy and this straightforward. Start using people's names out and about in the world and be amazed at the type of interactions you're going to start having. And when Kelly the bartender gives you a free drink, send me a message because that's going to happen to you. So to recap, since birth, we have been programmed to respond to the sound of our name, connects us to our identity and our culture. If we're using people's names, we give out a friendly energy that leads to instant positive connections. And this establishes a baseline for influence, and it's a simple and free way to do it. If we're ensuring any type of luxury experience, use of names is critical. And then if we're bad at names, please stop telling people we're bad at names. Use the script I've shared in this episode and practice. Practice with your local barista or Kelly the bartender, so that if we're in front of a key client or we're trying to influence a prospect, we're a rock star that of course remembers their name that they want to do business with. So that's it. That is the importance of remembering names. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, please share it with a friend or colleague. Subscribe, rate, leave a review. It really does help. As of June 2023, we're 5 months into the show, and it has already ranked in the top charts in the United States, Canada, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Macau, Italy, Ukraine, and Uganda. From the United States, thank you so much for listening from all over the world. The rankings are quite volatile. They change every day. It is so fun to have a global audience, and I feel truly honored. So I hope to meet you and use your names one day in person soon. I would love to invite this global audience to a free virtual event that I am hosting on Friday, July 14th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. This event is around mindset, confidence, building your own personal brand. We're going to get into some networking and relationship strategies. So I will launch that next Monday with more details. If you want to stay up to date, you can add your name to the list on connect.saramurray.com. And then additionally, save the date, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, July 25th, 26th, 27th. I'm hosting a live 3-day virtual event. It's essentially a mid-year check-in to make sure that we're on track to achieve our 2023 goals. We're going to get into a lot of tangible tools, takeaways, there's downloads that we'll work on together as a group. It will be really fun, packed with a lot of value. And again, if you want to get on the list for that, it's connect.saramurray.com. That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to the Prospecting on Purpose podcast. If you loved what you heard today, subscribe to the podcast and please rate and leave a review. For more info on me, or if you'd like to work together, feel free to go to my website, saramurray.com. On social media, I'm usually hanging out at Sara Murray Sales. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.